All right, now we're going to move on to district goals reports, and who's coming up and talking to her?
It's Ms. Smetana and her staff, and just so the board, I'm sure are familiar with this, but as we move in through the month of September and October, this is where we begin to report out on district goals from the previous graduating class and school year, and the board addresses anything that they want addressed, modified or updated in any goals. Kristen?
So tonight we'll be reporting out on 2 of the 8 performance indicators. The first one will be average daily attendance, followed by engagement. So John and Neil are going to start.
Good evening, everyone. I gave you the summary. You can kind of take a look at it. A couple things I'm just going to highlight is there was a little increase on the attendance from the one that we discussed in June. We went up 0.2% from, it was 93.2, but it's went up to 93.4. That's based on every student gets a number, and students who transfer out, we have to wait for that number to be cleared up by the state, and once it does, then it does. So it's went up a little bit. A couple things that we've did this year is communicated our attendance, behavior, expectations of students through the newsletter, website, school mailings. We also this year, as we spoke at the freshman family night, Mr. Sibley and myself, and we also spoke at the open house as well, just giving them some ideas about attendance, our expectations on students and their behavior. We also did, which is the first time, is we went and we visited some of the feeder schools. We did discipline articulation where we met with the assistant principals or a representative from their schools, and we kind of were trying to get very similar language on what we use here at RB with the feeder schools. We visited those feeder schools. Their 8th graders are going to be incoming, once again, discussing our expectations for them when they come to RB, attendance, and behavior. It was a nice way to kind of see them at a kind of smaller scale, and then we saw them again as freshmen when we went to the freshman assemblies, sophomore assemblies, and so on. So it was kind of nice to be able to get them in smaller groups. What we're doing now in the next few weeks is, as we discussed last June, when we have our assemblies, we said there was a little issue with attendance when it came to assemblies, so we'll work with student associations so we can kind of tighten that down a little bit as well. We have the blood drive coming up as well. So those 2 areas that we're trying to button down on when it comes to attendance. What we also did this year is we're working hand in hand with the athletic department, where students who have perfect attendance during their athletic season will get an award at the end of the year. The team that has the highest percentage of attendance will also receive a team traveling trophy for, we're calling it like A for attendance. Also, we're working with the boosters, where we did the first home game is we go randomly and we'll go to a classroom, and if that classroom has perfect attendance, they will get we call it a booster buck, which is basically a free popcorn or a hot dog. Basically, it's rewarding the students who do the right thing every single day. Sometimes we might not say it, but we're just trying to say, hey, thank you for coming to school, being on time, doing what you're supposed to do here at RB. And then also we're doing this year is Dave Sibley will be working with Check and Connect. That is a research-based mentoring program that has been shown to improve attendance. We're kind of piloting it this year, just to kind of get an idea of how it's going to be working, and then we'll move forward with that as well. Okay. Any questions?
Any questions on regarding the student average daily attendance?
Kristen, your 3 goals for the district, or your 3 goals for your staff and what you're presented to the PTO, the staff at the new institute, and the student assemblies were what?
To actively engage all students in learning through attendance, technology, and formative assessment.
And so this is playing a major role, right?
It is, and Neil, Dave, Lori, security, they've done a phenomenal job this year of already targeting our attendance and stressing to students that it's important to be here and to be here on time. On Thursday mornings, as much as the students don't like it, it's our late start. You see somebody at the door checking IDs and handing out lunch detentions for that day for students who are tardy. They did that one week, and then the next week that decreased almost in half. So we're really going after students to make sure they understand the importance of being here and that they get here on time as well. So they've done a phenomenal job.
John, anything you want to add?
Yeah, it's not just issuing the detentions, it's holding them accountable and serving them in a timely manner. That's really the key, because if you're addressing them so far back, that lag time, they forget about, there's no connection. I'm impressed with what they're doing on that, and not just, like you're saying, someone's always at the door, and the kids are seeing it. And Kristen is right, the numbers are definitely decreasing because of the consistency of the application of the entire process, not just passing them out. That's easy. It's holding them accountable. That's where all the legwork comes in. And I'm impressed with what the whole team is doing, Dave and Neil. It starts with them and Lori. It's a great opportunity what's taking place right now.
So how are we attacking the 6.6% that are not, that we're having attendance problem with? Tell me what you're doing with that.
Sure. One thing we do is every single day we weren't able to do this last year, is if a student's not in their classroom, it's called unverified. And so they could be, let's say they're in the counselor's office, they could be in the nurse's office, they could be someplace in the building, but they're not in their classroom. So what we do is we have to identify where exactly they are. So we have a thing called entry by date, which is, it's very exciting. And you look through and you scroll through every single student who might not be where they're supposed to be, and you have to find their schedule, and you have to go chase them down and track them down where they're at, and you ask them, where were you? And they're like, well, I was over here. So then I have to go and I have to double check to make sure that they were where they're supposed to be. If they are not where they're supposed to be, let's say they want to take, it's double dog day, so they want to take a second lunch, well, then that's a cut, which means they have now left, or they are still in the building, but they decide to cut a period, they get a discipline action. It's Friday, it's 80 degrees out, they want to start the weekend early, they've left school, it is now a truancy. We are now going after those students as well, contacting parents, using local municipalities, Riverside, Brookfield, PD, anything we can just to really let them know you got to be in school. So we're able to do it.
Absences are going to happen, correct? And parents,
Yeah.
what we're trying to encourage is that they're only happening when parents know and are calling them in.
Yeah, and the one thing is that we're really trying to let parents know is that you can't call 3 days later to let you know that you can't call on Wednesday to say your child was sick on Monday. It's not going to work. So you got to call by 10 a.m. to let us know that your child's not here, because it's not just we're trying to be punitive. It's a safety issue. Where is your child?
And to follow up with the unverifieds, what they are doing this year is they run a report and then issue a Saturday detention, so that the ownership goes back to the student to go to wherever they were at, whether it was the nurse or the guidance counselor, to clear that absence, so that the deans don't have to run around the building doing that, but the students take ownership for that or have a Saturday detention as a result.
Security, too, is playing an active role in that as well. It's once again the timeliness of following up and going after those, because if you go after them so far beyond when they occurred, there's no significance to it. You're catching them now, and you're trying to address behaviors, looking at past practice of some of the students and address those and use the team that's in student services and other resources throughout the building, as Neil and Dave are discussing and implementing. It's very exciting.
Any other questions?
I just have one question. If a student comes early, can they go to the cafeteria, kind of set up early?
Typically, the cafeteria is open. There is breakfast. They go in the commons.
Okay.
This is a pretty open school. It's like 7 a.m.
Definitely.
It's open.
The
The
library's
building's
also
open, the
open.
cafe's
Yeah.
open, there's people, they're sitting in the commons waiting for the caf to open, they wander in there and you'll see about a half a dozen or so tables of students sitting in there, and it's a daily ritual for some.
Yeah, it's a pretty lively
100%.
building at 7 a.m. So.
They're here.
So it gives them place if they need to get a ride early or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
The
to-
building is there.
They have time to come in early and,
Also sit right in the commons area or
Okay.
at the top of A. It's a real inviting place to be. It's nice.
Thank you.
Okay, then you have
Let me ask one
another?
other question, if
Yep.
you don't mind. How big of an improvement do the procedures and process you have in this year do you expect over last year? Because if you look at the history of numbers between 2013 and 2014, we went up, like you said, 0.2%. That's 30 kids on average a day, right? Which is a good thing. But when
Me
we're
personally,
having-
qualitatively, there isn't a huge improvement. Quantitatively, I'm going to wait till progress reports to really see where it's at. And then I'm going to compare last year's data to this year's data to kind of get a true baseline, and then we can see where we're at. There's definitely going to be an improvement, though.
And you may end up having a student or two who throws everything out of whack
Okay.
with the numbers and issues they may be dealing with that are beyond the scope of the resources we have to offer. And that's when, that's not in a report, when you're reaching out and you're working with those families, you're bringing them in with the resources and student services, so.
We've done a better job, though, this year of not allowing students to get to that 10, 15 day, and all of a sudden it's September, October, we're like, holy cow, this kid's got 10, 15 absences. We're on top of that immediately. If students have, it's in our handbook, so we're really using the handbook this year. But once they hit that 5%, you've missed 5% of the school year already. That's, within 15 days, you've missed 5%. That's a lot. Where they have to bring in a doctor's note to prove their, where they've been. On the phone a lot with parents, and I think this year we've really eliminated that specific student who's missing a lot.
And that's directly related to the board's decision to have an additional dean. No way around it. The two of them together with Ms. Sullivan to work with them has made a difference in going after that on the front end. When you're chasing it, it's too late. You want to be aggressive, so that's really a direct relationship to that, 100%, in my opinion.
Very good job. Okay, our next performance indicator.
Is student engagement.
Good job, Neil.
The document you have in front of you has quite a bit of information, engagement from 2011 to 14. For whatever reason, we don't know how it occurred, 9 rosters were left off of the percentages as we went back and rechecked it from 59% in 2013 to 63% in 2014. Though we had them, they just weren't entered into Skyward for some reason, we don't know why. So those numbers are probably more balanced in that sense, though we had them in there, but they weren't in this percentage. What's really interesting as we were looking today is the number of students, and Art Ostro and I worked together on how many students are involved in 0 activities to 1, and an activity being, as is noted, a sport or an extracurricular. Very exciting that that's taking place now. With the transition of Neil, Mr. Dugetti and Mr. Sibley as a dean and me having some, I'm able to exploit my opportunity as the activities director. We've already done things right now that we haven't been able to do in the past with activities to encourage engagement. We've already had our activity fair in the cafeteria where groups have gone in there and solicited participation and shared information. We're real aggressive this year working with the tech department and the sponsors in upgrading and updating their websites. It's been real exciting to ensure that the rosters are solid and accurate. Working with Kristen, I've created a Google document that in fact is a shared document that is sitting out there on Google Drive where in fact it's the responsibility of sponsors. It's been a real exciting opportunity so far. What was interesting was the activity survey that was issued by the Student Services Department, who has an opportunity to see every student, on why students just chose not to participate. You're wondering, is it the club? Is it something else beyond our control? And if you look, in some cases it is, some it isn't. I mean, some of the clubs we're bringing back, it's kind of interesting when you look at and you really kind of see the kids that aren't engaged. Some of them are working, some of them are just don't want to participate. And we brought a few of those back last year, and it was real exciting. With the French club and the German and the Spanish club, and so there's some opportunities there. And it'll be interesting this year to see how those groups develop. As the activity director, that's my role. With the website, I've been working hand in hand. It's been real exciting this year. Not having to deal with the daily operations as Neil and Dave are doing major grunt work in the building and creating climate and working hand in hand with students. I'm able to push engagement and work with the sponsors, so I'm really excited about what that looks like and keeping an eye on it as we move forward. I hope I've answered. There were a few questions, and I think I might have answered.
So looking at this, for the board's perspective going forward, not this year, because the budget was approved tonight, but art photo is something that 98 kids or some of that crossover? Or?
Yeah, it's interesting. Having even met with the staff members in that department, there's a lot of energy there that we can tap on and really get kids involved with. It's something to seriously consider. I'm meeting with that department and I'm actually evaluating them as well. But those students involved in there, some of those kids are going to pull them off the 0 activities. Some of those kids are just waiting to get back into those clubs. And some of those clubs, when they were in existence, that's where those kids were found.
Kristen, we just hired a new full-time autos CAD teacher, autos teacher. So is that something that eventually, as he becomes more established here at the school, the 30 kids for the auto club?
Yes, that's something he also expressed interest in and asked about when we initially hired him. And I think we'll see that program and that interest grow as well. So yes, I would look at the auto club as well.
And what we have written down in the procedure that we're using is so that if a club has not been paid for or has been out of use for more than 2 years, we're asking for people that have club interest to submit it to the principal and the activity director. You guys review it,
Correct.
and you
Starts with me, it ends up with Kristen.
consider participation sponsor, and then they have to volunteer for the club for 2 years to see if can carry student participation and engagement for 2 years before you would bring something forward to the board, correct?
Correct.
During that time, I collect the attendance monthly from the groups to see how they're sustaining engagement from students.
Do we provide the clubs and groups strategies on how to attract more students to their clubs?
One of the
Ever
things
thought
we
about doing
did,
it?
yes, to do that, yes. Some of the clubs, you don't need it, the numbers are pretty high, but those that do, I've met with every sponsor and in fact shared the rationale behind the activity fair and the role their students can play, and key, which hasn't been exploited in Will this year, is the website. The website was a wonderful tool that's sitting out there, and working with David Fisher on the IT department and some of the students within the clubs, exploiting that opportunity. So, and then working one-on-one with some of the sponsors, if in fact they're new to the district, and give them a kind of an overview of what has worked and where they can move forward.
Are we evaluating the sponsors every year or two to see if they're doing the job?
Yes, we'll have an evaluation tool that I have.
Okay.
Art, you have anything from athletics in regards to engagement you want to add?
No, I mean, we pretty much talked about it. I mean, our numbers are pretty high. I think our numbers right now in the fall are might be more than even last year. I mean, some of the sports were kind of tied to their rosters, so we have some of those sports that we target that are no cut, that we try to, encourage kids to come out. And I spoke at the freshman parent night to just, get your kid out and try something new. And so we've done things like that and try to add some more camps, offer some camps to get involved and things like that. So, but our numbers are pretty high, and I think we haven't reached our max, but we're pretty close to, not being able to go over this summer.
We'll get the fall sports report from you in the, I think it's November.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on the sports? Art, do we change sports from being no cut to cut?
The only time we haven't typically done that. We've talked about it if it's a safety issue.
But the coaches couldn't do it. They'd have to get your,
Correct.
probably, presumably Kevin's permission, right?
Yeah.
I just noticed, I read the Daily Bulletin now that comes out every day. For boys swimming, it says meeting, tryouts for swimming is such and such a day. I didn't think swimming had tryouts. I
Well,
thought it was a
everybody
non-coach.
has tryouts. We'll
Okay.
call it tryouts. We haven't had to make cuts in boys swimming in a long time.
Okay.
There's obviously a number for safety reasons or just being able to go, but I think he just has that because we just call it tryouts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have a question too, just on the chart with respect to club or activity, and maybe I missed the asterisk or something in here. But I have a kid who tells me he's doing Model UN and some sort of academic bowl.
Sure,
And
Scholastic Bowl.
Scholastic Bowl.
Yeah, and either those don't exist, or how are they in the,
No, they exist. These are the clubs that,
Yep.
these are the new ones?
these are the ones that were previously cut a couple
Got
of years
it,
ago.
okay.
Yes.
So when
That's what
kids signed up, why they're not involved.
That's what I
is they
missed,
want.
okay.
You go to the activities drop down, and you'll see those clubs.
Excellent.
One suggestion I want to make on close is what you've done with going out and talking to the assistant principals out in the district about making sure you get the lingo right. I think that also would work good with clubs, and maybe going out and showing future like 8th graders, here's what we got to have offering, if you want to do something with it, just to
Great
keep
idea.
them at it.
We do that with We Are RB, and that is a pretty well-attended event. But we can
Yeah,
also
but
reach out to
that could be something that even when that's taking place, to go out there with a brochure, just to mention it to them, and then remind them about We Are RB. Because some people just think We Are RB, and it's just a common thing that maybe they don't realize the value of it. I like the idea.
Any other questions on engagement?
Well, I have one. Do we have opportunities where a club can be a volunteer, where the sponsor can be a volunteer and it's not a stipend position?
Yes.
Yeah, we've had situations like that for sure, 100%. Staff don't even, this is in the past, it isn't occurring at
Our
this
hip
moment.
hop club is
Yeah.
a volunteer. Our
Yeah.
J. Cal Braid sponsors are volunteer.
Athletic trainers.
Student
There's
athletic
4.
trainer is more or less volunteer.
Bulldogs.
Those have been in existence.
Right. So we have
There's
clubs
nothing
that are
new.
volunteers. And if somebody wants to start a new club, they have to do it for 2 years as a volunteer, just as even be considered for a stipend.
So the follow-up to her question is, if a staff member wanted to, they could start for instance, the art club, the
Sure.
photo club, and the auto club this year,
Yep. Well,
come to us, do a present if it's okay with
they'd have to go through the proper.
I understand,
paperwork, but yeah.
they'd have to take the steps, we'd have to approve the volunteer sponsor, and they could do it if they wanted to.
Staff members have been coming to us, and I work with Kristen hand in hand, because obviously there's a procedure in place that needs to be adhered to. We're working on a few of those right now.
Were you done? Was it, the only other question I had is, one of the categories actually, about in the middle under the reasons students didn't participate, was it's too expensive. Our students know that. We have waiver provisions.
100%, but it's like anything, though the waiver, the numbers are there, some kids just don't fall into it.
Well, I understand.
But we encourage them to still participate, and if need be, like with some of the sponsors, they're aware of some of their members struggling, and try to do some fundraising for those kids, or they're real creative, and Mr. Monty with Chess Club is one of them.
We also should make sure, Kristen and John, that we do over-advertise that there are, I think it's either 10 or 13 clubs that are free.
Yeah, 100%.
The
don't have the
language, I
exact
think the
number,
language
yeah,
clubs are
it's-
free, all the government clubs are free, there's leadership and opportunities and service clubs that are all free.
100%.
So those 36 kids, we gotta make sure they know that.
Yep, French, German,
Right.
the Spanish club.
Well-
And we do have the discretion of the administration, right?
Correct.
To waive a fee.
Right?
All right, seeing no other questions, great job, Neil and John and your staffs. Kristen, your staff's with us, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.